Alrighty, and we're on. Katie Rose Mitchell. Is that what you like to go by?
Yeah, my people actually always ask me about that, and people always put like the hyphen in the wrong spot and stuff like that. And so it's my middle name's Rose, but as a kid, I just used to get in trouble so much that, when you get in trouble by your parents and they call you by your full name.
Yep.
So I just was always Katie Rose. So then it just became how I responded to. So most people just call me Katie Rose.
Yeah, fair enough. Like that, straight away, like I'm immediately thinking about when I yell at my kids, and it's like
Your full name?
Yeah, full name, and it's just like they know they're in shit.
Yeah. So it just happens so often that's just became what I respond to.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, fair enough. And okay, so I guess to give people a little bit of insight into you, you've just taken out this beautiful hardcore promotions, the 8 Women Eliminator, the WBC Muay Ying Title, 20 grand richer.
Yes.
So if anyone, hasn't seen those, well, make sure you go and check those out. And I do want to talk about the Muay Thai stuff, but to sort of give everybody a bit more of an insight into you, like I always like to bring it back to, what was like life growing up and childhood and all that sort of stuff. So what would be one of your earliest memories?
Oh, wow. My earliest memories. So I grew up, I've got 2 older sisters and I've got a younger brother, and we're all very close. We're a very close family, especially now, me and all my siblings. But one of my, I don't know if you'd say fond memories, but one of my memories with my sister is like fighting with my sisters.
Yeah?
Yeah, all the time. Like just like wrestling and stuff like that. I remember my sister Abby used to scratch really badly. And
Oh, no. There's always one.
She'd scratch and it would sting. And I just have like funny memories of fighting with them, or like going to swimming and then fighting in the back car. And I was telling someone the other day when they asking about my siblings, like, oh, did you argue growing up? I was like, oh, we'd wrestle a bit. I was like, I remember one time my sister pulled my hair out, and I like would take it back out of her hand and put it on my head.
Oh,
like,
no way.
Like, yeah, we were pretty feral with each other.
Look, I think that's just siblings in general, right?
Yeah.
Because my kids are definitely the same.
Yeah.
Was it, out of curiosity, from the scratcher, are there any scars?
Yeah, probably a few.
So my youngest, Talia, she's only like 16 months,
Mm-hmm.
but she will go up to people, and obviously if you're in a way, then she'll be like that. She'll like just scratch people, and like unfortunately for my my third child, Eden, like she got scratched right on the face, and she's got a little scar, and I'm like, hopefully it'll go away, but if not, well, it's a bit of character. It's all right on her face. Ugh.
Yeah, my sister once as well. I remember was sitting at the dinner table eating food, and I took she had like her sausage cut up, and I took some of it. She stabbed me in the face with a fork.
Stabbed you in the face.
Yeah. She stabbed me. It was like in the eyebrow. And now that we're adults and I think about it, I'm like, what if I moved and you got me in the eye?
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Wow, you guys escalated quickly.
But there's love there.
Yeah, I think, the fact that you can be so comfortable with your siblings that's part of the love, right? Like, I think it's like, there's nobody that's going to see you at the worst that you could possibly be other than your siblings, where you're so comfortable in your own home that you can throw the biggest tannies in the world and, fight and everything else, and then 2 seconds later, you're friends again.
My sister Abby, she like backs me so hard. Same one that stabbed me in the face. She will back me so hard that sometimes if something's going on in my life and I kind of like, you subconsciously kind of know you're in the wrong, I won't call her because I know she'll just back whatever I have to say. Like, it's just straight off the bat. She's kind of just like, well, they should have done this. And I'm like, oh, maybe I am wrong. But she like completely, there's nothing, like I'm kind of like her baby at the same time.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, families of 4, like, and, I guess, speaking as a dad of 4, right? Like, it's crazy in the household, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
How did your parents cope?
I mean, they got through it, I guess.
Yeah.
But I was probably the biggest headache out of all of them.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
So 2 older sisters, 1 younger brother. So you're one of the middle ones, or the third one, I should say.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's the age difference up and down?
So it's 2 years between all my sisters. So I've got my older sister who's like
4 years older than you?
29.
Yep.
And then my next sister, there's 2 year gap, and then 2 years between us. I'm 25. She's 27. And then my younger brother is 3 years younger than me. So my younger brother's 22.
Okay. And I guess as the only boy, did he get like special treatment? Because he's the special one. He's the only boy.
He was very, I think, probably like the one that didn't get worried about at all, like probably, and he's probably traumatized from having 3 older sisters that were all kind of nuts, but he definitely was the favorite. Like for my dad's, like it was my dad. I remember him doing all these different sports and stuff like that because he was the boy.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's one of those ones. If you've always got one, the odd one out, so to speak, they always become like a little bit special in that regard, and they know it too.
Yeah.
Like my son will come up to me and he goes, "Oh, Daddy, I'm your only son." And I'm like, "Yes, I know, mate." Like, but it daughters like warm my heart. Like it's just one of those things when when one of my girls come up to me and they want to cuddle or whatever. It's just like it's such a nice feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess whereabouts did you grow up?
So I grew up in Penrith. So I pretty much spent my entire life in Penrith, and I've only just moved out to the eastern suburbs like in July this year.
Yep.
But apart from that, I spent my whole life in Penrith.
Yep. And I actually grew up out west as well. I grew up in Sinclair.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. So 10 years of my life out there. But like I didn't have any necessarily bad experiences per se. I was a cul-de-sac kid. Lived in this nice little at the corner house of this little cul-de-sac, and played with the other kids on the street, like all that kind of stuff. How about for you?
No, so we grew up in Glenmore Park, which is a bit of a nicer area as well. And we grew up in a big house there. I think probably more so I kind of found the trouble.
Yeah.
But where we were and stuff was always very nice. There was never anything like bad around where I was.
Yeah.
But as I got a teenager, I found this is what Mount Druitt is.
Okay. We'll get to that. So, out of curiosity, when you're in primary school, what did your teachers used to say about you? What kind of kid were you?
I was really good in primary school. In primary school, I was very like aiming up, really wanted to be good and stuff like that. I was even like one of the prefects in year 6 and like sports captain and stuff like that. So in primary school, I was very, I don't know if I wouldn't say I necessarily like excelled academically, but I was very much like try my best, do the right thing, that kind of thing. I was like part of the debate team, stuff like that, just because I love to argue.
Well, the ultimate expression of argument is throwing fists, right? I said this to my wife the other day. It's just like, the kids need to learn that there comes a point where the words just become violence. not in like a bash my kids kind of a way, but just like there's repercussions to their actions. Like you can't get around, like if you think you can walk around like, yelling insults at another kid and then they think that other kid isn't just going to want to punch you or something like that. Yeah. Like you need to understand, like that's the ultimate expression in like where arguing goes. So
now I can tell that you grew up in the West.
well, if you want to, if you're gonna pick those fights, you got to just make sure you can win them, right? Okay, and then when primary school, you tried your best, and was there ever any pressure from your parents to do this or do that? Like, what were they like?
No, I think as well, like, I think when you're kind of one of the younger siblings, so I think the pressure was probably a lot more on my 2 older sisters. So I think my 2 older sisters were very under the pump to perform well and get good grades and stuff like that. And then I think just like naturally anything you do, if you keep doing it after a while, like you kind of get a bit lazy. Probably the same with parenting. I can't speak.
Yeah. No, that's true.
And yeah, so I wouldn't necessarily say I had a lot of pressure, and my parents were always very much like, I don't care what marks you get as long as you're trying, as long as you're doing your best. I don't care. But I think my older 2 are maybe held to a bit higher of a standard.
Yep.
And my older 2 sisters very smart. Both of them are very, very smart.
So out of curiosity, like what do they do nowadays?
So my oldest sister is a police officer.
Okay.
My oldest one, and then the sister under that's a nurse.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And then, you as the third one, decided I'm going to be a fighter.
Yeah. I decided I want to punch people in the face.
And then what about your brother?
My brother is a cabinet maker.
Oh, okay.
But he's
Good
also
trade.
actually a professional fighter as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And all right. So then, so I'm guessing obviously when you went to high school, that's when, you start to...
It's all downhill from there.
So share with us some of the stories, I guess, like What group were you in? You know, obviously there's lots of groups in high school, right?
So I feel like, so I went to school and they used to have, at my school, they had like a self-select class. So it was like for kids that like wanted to be better, like kids that were like smarter and wanted to do better things, like kind of like the good kids. And so you had to apply for that. And my two older sisters had already gone to the high school, and so they were very good. So they were in it, and the teachers all loved them and stuff like that. And then my parents made me apply to go in it as well. And I think I probably got in it because they're like, oh, here's another Mitchell.
Yeah.
So you get in. And then I feel like I went into that class, and then I was like, maybe the first couple months was like same, trying my best, trying to be good. And then there were like two kids I remember in there that were kind of a bit like naughty as well, like would test the rules. And I was like, oh, I want to be friends with these people.
Yeah.
And then it was like that. And then eventually I got asked to leave the self-select class.
Oh, did the other two get kicked out too?
Yeah.
Oh no.
And then like I was all right. I just was very wanted to argue with teachers. I didn't want to wear what they'd tell me to wear. And then like the wagging stuff.
Don't you wear a uniform?
Yeah, like they're like stupid stuff. Like they're like, you need these colour socks, and then I'd wear the other socks. Or they're like, you need to wear this skirt, and then I'd wear shorts and like stuff like that. Or like I'd just wear like completely different like shorts and the sports shirt, and they're like, that's not the uniform. And then I just argue with them. So there was lots of that.
It's like really like you know
petty.
Yeah, like not even like rebel with a cause. It's like rebel. Just completely no cause.
Just cause.
Yeah, just cause.
Just cause, fuck you.
And okay, so then obviously that then, you know, would make it difficult in terms of relationships with teachers and things like that.
Yeah, and then so it just from there kind of went on, and then I used to like have a bad relationship with teachers, and I was getting called wagging and stuff. I remember my dad called me wagging once, and oh my God, I've never been so scared in my whole life. We were like in one of the older people's cars, and we went to Macca's, and I remember my dad like pulled up next to us, and I just remember him screaming, "What the fuck, Katie? What the fuck?" And I remember my friend's like laying down in the back, and he's like, "I can see you in there."
Oh wow. So
just dumb stuff like that. Just didn't want to, and like wagging, arguing, all that kind of nonsense.
And so like I guess when you went home that evening, you know, what did your dad? How was there any punishment? Like what happened?
I actually, so my parents were separated. I actually went to my mum's, and I stayed at my mum's for like 3 days.
Avoiding him. Ah, yes, true avoidance.
That's like the gold thing about having split up parents is if one's mad, you can just hide with the other one.
And you know, you don't have to answer this question if you don't want to, but I'm a little bit curious. You know, when your parents split, did that do you think that could have had an impact in terms of how you sort of viewed things? And
yeah, probably, for sure. I think I was about maybe like end of year 7, year 8 when they split, and that probably sparked a big rebellious thing. And it would probably so my older sisters were obviously older when that happened, and so they had been good the whole time, and then me and my brother were kind of a bit rat baggy, so that's like the timeline kind of links up.
Yeah.
So, and I think it does affect kids, but like, what are you going to do? You can't have parents that stay together when they're not happy. Like, can't do that.
Yeah. No, but it's just one of those things because, you know, I always think about this, you know, when it comes to my own parenting style, right? It's like kids, they experience all these different kinds of emotions, right? And the hardest thing is like when you can't put a label on it.
Yeah.
Right? Because, you know, anger can look like anger. Like, you know, like a tantrum could look like anger. But that tantrum could actually be frustration.
Yeah.
Or that tantrum could be, you know, actually being embarrassed or sadness, and then they're acting out in a different way.
Totally. I remember like getting referred to like the school psychologist when I was in there, and I remember one of the times that I went, because I was like, no, I don't need to go. But one of the times I remember her saying, because like the teachers told me to go because I was so angry. I remember one of the times when I was there, she was telling me that anger is a masking emotion. Like usually people will act out of anger because of another emotion.
Yep.
And yeah, I definitely think it is that. And I think how I am now, I can definitely identify that more. And even like I remember her telling me once that when I get really angry, to count down from 10. And I still do it to this day. If I get real angry and I feel like I'm about to lose it, I still count down from 10. And it's something that's like so simple, but fuck, it works, eh? It still works. I don't get that angry as much anymore. Nowhere near as much, but I have done a few countdowns from 10.
Yeah. Ever use the countdown thing in a fight?
No, I don't give a fuck then.
You're allowed to be angry.
Fuck you, I'll use this anger.
Yeah, no, it's yeah, and that's what made me think about it, is because, you know, when I like, as I've grown into an adult and really like spent a lot of time reflecting on things, it was one of those things where it's like, okay, you need to sort of like really break down some of these things, because it's easy to just say, oh, this person's just angry.
Yep.
But then it's like, when you start to then think about, okay, what is actually motivating the anger? Is it actually embarrassment? Is it trauma? Is it what, you know, you pick the emotion, but like anger is like sort of like a blanket statement, you know, it's a blanket descriptor of like, what is the symptom? What's the root cause, right? And so, you know, like throughout all the podcasts, like I've spoken to so many people that I always like, you know, asking some of those questions, because sometimes like people don't, you know, you may not necessarily think about it yourself, and then it's like, oh shit, hang on a second.
Yep.
You know, that does sort of line up. Okay. You know, maybe there is something there that I got to think about a little bit more. And then, okay, so then when it came to schooling in high school, like, did you have any idea what you wanted to do when you finished high school? No.
So I left like before year 10 ended.
Yeah.
And then I was just working. So I got a job. I got my first job when I was like 13. Because I think it was like
13? You let? I thought it was 14 and 9 months that you're supposed to.
No, I think it's like 13 in a couple of months.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Or they were just doing it illegally. I don't know.
Could be that.
Also on the cards. But yeah, so I had my first job when I was 13, and I just worked in a news agency. And then I was...
Were they Asians? The owners?
Indians.
Okay.
Indians,
Yeah, probably illegal. Anyway.
I was paid cash in hand, so yeah. Yeah, so I worked there from when I was 13, and then when I left school, I was like, my parents were like, we need to do something if you're going to leave.
Oh, so what year did you leave?
Like just before year 10 finished.
Okay.
And then so I left, and I was just working in the news agency, and then I started going to TAFE to do like personal training.
Mm-hmm.
So I was doing that, and then I was going to TAFE. And then after I finished my Cert 3 in fitness, I was kind of like, oh, I don't know if I really want to do that. And then I was just working in the news agency full time, and yeah.
So then,
that was the very first one I left.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And so had you already started training then?
Yeah, so I started training when I was 14.
14. So that would have been what, year 8?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was actually a bit after my parents separated as well,
mm-hmm.
Which I think kind of gave me a good outlet. So I first went, my dad took me, probably because like he was very, obviously, so my dad was a cop that we talked about before we started recording. And so obviously he knows the real world. And he was very much like, I want you to know how to defend yourself and all that. And I think he probably identified I needed an outlet.
Mm.
And so his friend was going to this fight gym called Elite Fight Gym at the time, and just doing like the fitness kickboxing classes. And then he would take me and my brother, and that's how it started. We started going like that, and I was like hooked like straight away. And I thought it was so cool. I used to see all the fighters and think, wow, they're so cool. And I'd like start going down YouTube rabbit holes of watching all these Muay Thai fights and watching the people from that gym.
Elite Fight Gym, they also had MMA, didn't they?
So it was owned by a few different people, but yeah, it had MMA at the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
I did the wrestling that they had there as well.
Oh, so you actually did do some of the wrestling and
yeah,
things like that.
just a little bit.
And then what made you then decide, you know, I want to pursue the kickboxing side more?
So we were always just doing kickboxing, and then I'd do a little bit of wrestling and stuff like that. And then that gym actually shut down.
Okay.
So that gym closed, and then I didn't do anything for a little bit, and then there was another gym that was just Muay Thai called Muay Thai, which was in Penrith as well. And then so a little bit after that, I started going to that one, and my dad didn't come to that one. That was I started to like take it on my own initiative to go there.
Mm.
So I would go there by myself, and sometimes I'd just walk there to go there.
Oh, you could walk there?
It was a fair bit of a walk. It was from like, I don't know, like Glenmore Park to Jamison Town.
So how many Ks is that? Well, how long? Okay, let's rephrase. How long would it take you to walk there?
I can't even remember now. Maybe like 7 Ks or something like that.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, it was a bit of a trek.
That's a bit of a trek.
Yeah.
And out of curiosity, as a kid who used to do quite a bit of walking myself, when you walked, like, do you have any memories of like what you would think about? Because I can tell you what I used to think about. I'd be like, you know, one day I'm gonna have a motorbike and I'm gonna like ride to these places rather than walking like a pleb, or like, and like, cause I was too tight. I didn't want to like take the bus or anything like that cause it cost money. Yeah. So I'd like be walking like, I don't know, half an hour to get to the shops or something like that.
No, I don't remember at all. Hey, maybe bit of concussion, but I don't remember. I don't
You
know.
should at least remember the way there. If you don't remember the way back, it could be a concussion.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I remember. I don't remember necessarily having any deep thoughts when I was walking there, for sure. No.
just enjoying yourself.
Yeah, just thinking, fuck, I can't wait to get there and punch people in the face.
And how many days a week were you doing that?
I think I'd try to go 5. I'd try to go to 5. I really wanted for the coach to tell me I was allowed to fight, so it was very much like every day trying to go and trying to like get noticed.
Yeah. And out of curiosity, then, like, when was your first fight?
When I was maybe just before I turned 17.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so when you get told, okay, yeah, we're gonna let you fight.
Yeah. So I was always like under the impression of like the coach will tell me when I can fight. You
Yeah.
know, like I'll just show up and then whenever I'm ready, the coach will be able to tell me that, yeah, you can fight. Which is funny now. Like I always kind of feel a bit strange when I see people in the gym come in and they're like, oh, I want to fight. Like it kind of hits me wrong. And I guess like there's no right or wrong way, but to me a little bit, I'd be like, oh, it's the Conor McGregor complex. People are like, oh yeah, I'm going to come in, I'm going to be a fighter. And I was very much like, earn your stripes. But that's probably, maybe that's my jaded way of looking at it. I don't know. But yeah, I felt like I had to tell me that. So when they finally said to me, they're like, oh, are you going to fight? I was like, oh, can I?
Yeah.
So I was very excited. I remember thinking, I'm like, fuck, how am I going to break it to my dad that I'm going to fight? And but they didn't stop me. I didn't say anything. I think they kind of knew they couldn't stop me.
Well, if you're going 5 days a week, and then by that stage, so 17, you've already done 3 years.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but yeah, it was super exciting. And then I couldn't get a match for ages and ages because I was young. People didn't want to, obviously older people didn't want to fight me as well. So I don't know. I think the first person I fought was like 21. I could be wrong, but I think she was about that old. But a lot of time, I remember one time they were trying to match me to someone and the woman was like 30 and she's like, no, I'm not fighting you.
Yeah, well.
Which I get. Like,
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Like it's kind of like a lose-lose because in the sense of like the older person beats you, it's like, oh yeah, how do you feel? You beat up a kid.
Yeah.
Right?
I remember at the time being like, fuck that bitch, I'd bash her anyway.
Yeah, because you're the young one, right? Like it's sort of like a win-win for you because even if you lost, it's like, well, she was 30. And then if you pumped her, then it would have been like, yeah, bash that bitch.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah. But I did say, obviously I'm probably like too high up in the ranking now and stuff like that. But at the time, like when I turned 18, 19, I'd always said, I was like, if there's someone that's 17, I'll fight them because I just remember being that kid and I was like, I don't care. Like, I'll fight you.
Yeah.
If they're that, because I remember being mad about it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, there's also heaps. I think there's a lot more going on in terms of female Muay Thai now. Yeah. You know, Muay Thai League, all that sort of stuff.
The scene now is just completely different to how it was when I started, like the development days and stuff like that. I'm like, fuck, I wish.
Shout out to Dory. Sorry.
I'm like, I wish there was this kind of thing around when I started. Like, I can't imagine the development I could have had if this stuff was around. So yeah, there's a different world now.
Yeah, it's really cool to see like how fast the scene's sort of progressing. Like at the same time, it's like, you know, you think back, it's actually not that long ago, but at the same time, it feels like almost like generations ago, just because of how fast things have progressed.
Yeah, totally. And I think like a lot of changed as well with like people turning pro. Like I feel like people turn a lot pro a lot quicker now. And I know people kind of said, so I had like 19 amateur fights, and I know people were kind of like, oh, it's too long. Like it's too long of an amateur career. And I get that in a sense, but also to me, like when I started, it kind of like really like it was earn your stripes to be able to turn professional and get paid. And then like now it's like you see people have like 6 fights and they turn pro, and I can see like the level of Muay Thai is definitely better than what it was then. But I think same thing. I think I was kind of a little bit jaded I was like, well, it doesn't even mean anything to war, and I felt like I really went through the hard yards to do it. But that's just me being jaded.
Yeah. That's an interesting one, right? Because I see this all the time with like mixed martial arts athletes as well. It's like guys will do get 5 fights under the belt and then in the amateur scene and then progress to pro. But like I also think about it from the perspective of like nowadays, and this is particularly for MMA, when you look at the rule set between like an amateur bout and a professional bout, like the only real difference is like, you know, elbows, no rotational leg locks, and so it's like, especially if you're fighting in like Queensland where they allow knees to the head and all that sort of stuff, it's like it's actually not too far of it's not much of a gap to bridge.
Yeah.
Right. And so like from a damage perspective, like if you're going to get exposed to taking that kind of damage, well, you might as well like try and get paid for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
totally.
so it's one of those things. Like I think, it's a little bit different, I guess, in the Australian scene compared to like, if you're fighting in Thailand where there's like fights every week, and like you don't really spar in the gym, you just fight because you're doing your fight shows every week, and you're play sparring and you're just touching and you're doing that sort of stuff. It's like you're still preserving yourself quite a lot,
Yeah.
and that's why those guys can rack up such big records. But like I feel like by the time anybody fights on a show here, like you feel like you're at that cusp of like big consequences.
Yeah.
So the damage is also that you sustain is also
Yeah.
larger, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So do you remember how you felt in your first fight?
So I remember one of the things that I remember is I remember getting in the ring to fight, and like I felt pretty good, like just normal nerves. Like obviously I was probably shitting myself, but one thing that I distinctly remember was so we went to the center of the ring and the referee gives you the rules, and I remember coming back to my corner and I remember my legs shaking, like uncontrollably shaking, and thinking, "Fuck, can people see that I'm shaking right now?" And then I just remember gassing like, "Fuck!" I remember that first time adrenaline dump. And if you haven't experienced it, you just don't know. And like I always say to people in the gym, like when they're exhausted from training and stuff like that, I'm like, this isn't even an ounce of how you're gonna feel in your first fight. Like that adrenaline dump is just something. Like you just can't even train yourself to experience how it feels. And I remember it kicking in like halfway through the second round and just being like, fuck. But I think I'd kind of done enough in the first bit to get the nod.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny because like it's and over time, like now you probably feel a lot more comfortable in the ring, right?
Yeah, totally.
And so it's like you can almost it's like from a mental perspective, it's like when you're visualizing yourself inspiring and you're visualizing yourself in the ring, it's like you try and make it sort of like a level playing field. So it's like the calmness that you bring into sparring and the ability to flow and do all that sort of stuff is what you want to bring into the ring.
Yep.
But until you've experienced it, that first time where it's like, holy shit, like this, the pressure's up.
Yep.
It's almost like I don't know if this has ever happened to you in the training room, but it's like when the coaches pull out a camera and then they just start recording you in the training room. Yeah. And then you always see like the people just start to amp it up a little bit just because the camera's out, right? It's just that little thing where suddenly like, there's this cognitive thing in your brain.
People watching
it's
now.
like, somebody's watching. So, or I'm getting recorded, so I'm going to turn it up.
I always hear people as well talk about the nerves of fighting and they think about all the people watching them. And it's not something that I consciously notice. Like it's never been something that I'm like, oh my God, all these people are watching me. Like that's never been a part of my nerves at all. Like when people ask me, I've never been like, oh my God, these people are watching me. I've never necessarily ever been like, oh my God, I'm going to get hurt. Like this is going to hurt. Like that's not something that's really bothered me. Like I've seen like, sometimes you see the adrenaline going into the bucket and you think, oh fuck, I could get cut here. But it's never like getting hurt or people watching. It's never been something. I'm just like, I'm a really bad loser. I just don't want to lose. I don't even care about the performance or anything. I just want to win. That's what gets me.
That's the Westie side of you coming out. It's like I don't care how I win as long as I win. And
I've said before, I'm like, I would rather my face cut to shreds and get my hand raised than have a perfect face and lose.
Out of curiosity, then, because you've trained in a few different Muay Thai gyms, right?
Mm-hmm.
How like for those transitions between gyms for you, like was that a difficult choice? Was it an easy choice? Was there any sort of difficulty navigating relationships and things like that as well?
So for me, I've been like through a few gyms, and mainly like a lot of time was I kept shutting. So the first gym I was at, Elite Fight Gym, that shut, and then I went to a gym called Muay Thai, that shut. And then I was at a gym called Zoo Fitness, and then the coaches all just kept dropping off. So the coaches were going and going and going, and then it kind of became a bit more like commercialized. And then so I was like, oh, I need to leave because I want to fight, and this isn't a fight gym. And then I went to a gym called UTC in St. Mary's, and then I had a fair few fights out of there. I was training with Jacinta Austin at the time, so me and Jacinta are really good friends. We're actually going out tonight.
Hey, shout out to Jacinta.
Yeah.
She just
won a world title.
UAE. Yeah. Jacinta's been on before, so.
Yeah, I know. And so, we trained together for a while. We had a fair few fights. And then again, coaches were dropping off. And then I started training with another coach there, and then they didn't really have many people. And then then lockdown happened. So lockdown happened, and I started training with Reece Saliba, who was like, to me, kind of like a Muay Thai royalty kind of thing at the time. You know, he was someone from Penrith, who I first saw at Elite Fight Gym when I was there, and like he was really big at the time. You know, he won like the Rebellion title in the 4-man Eliminator and stuff like that, and was a world champion. So I always kind of knew who he was. So then I started, just because we had all the rules about how far you could travel, I started training. I could see he was PTing people at the park, and I was like, oh, I'll just train with him.
Okay.
And he's just a wealth of knowledge. So then and he just opened a gym in Penrith, so it was closer for me and everything. So then I just started training under him, and I turned pro under him. And I think we had maybe 10 fights together for really good success. I can't remember exactly what it was now, but yeah, had really good success there. And then I just ended up moving out east. So my partner lives out east, so I ended up just deciding I wanted to come out, live out here, live near the beach, live with him.
Get out of the riff.
Yeah.
Sorry, riff.
Sorry. Still a riff girl at heart. Watch me fight. She's still in there. And then I just said, look, I'm gonna move out east, and I can't travel an hour to Penrith to go and train.
Yeah.
So then I decided to move to the gym now. I'm at Sichitong with Aram, and we've got 3 Thai trainers there, and it's great. I really love it there as well. And so there's no bad blood there or anything. I know people can get real, like, people see people move gyms and they're like, oh, what happened here? Like, even when I posted that I was first training at another gym, I had so many people from everywhere message me, oh, what happened? You nosy fucks.
Yeah.
Nothing. I just moved.
I literally moved houses. Yeah.
I moved an hour away.
And Reece he'd understand that, right?
Yeah, no, and he was actually someone who told me. So when I first said it, he's like, okay, so you're going to go to Sichitong. So he kind of, like, and that's where I had in my head that I wanted to go. And I did, and it was a really, really great idea. So, and then I trained there. I knew about the 8-woman before that. And then so I trained for 13 weeks there.
Okay.
And then we did the 8-woman. Yeah.
Oh, so you already had the call up?
Yeah.
Far out.
Yeah, so this year I had my first fight in April, which was my first fight back in over a year because I had come back from injury. And then
what was the injury, out of curiosity?
I slipped discs in my back. Yeah.
How'd you do that?
Brutal. Just years of overtraining under recovering.
Wow.
So I actually didn't know that I did it. So I'd always, I just kept having back pain, and it was bad and it was bad and it was bad. And I was always holding my back and stuff. And I'd have moments where I'd be about to run and I'd be holding my back. And Reece would be like, don't, just go home. He's done his back before, so I think he kind of saw the warning signs.
Yeah.
And then one day I got swept when we were clinching, and then I was just laying on the floor, and he's like, go to the doctor, go get a fucking scan.
Yeah, get it checked.
And then I did, and the doctor actually rang me, and he goes, I don't know how you're walking around, let alone training for over 4 hours every day.
Is it tough for your own good?
Yeah, literally. And so then I had to take a break, and then we just went through the struggles with that, and I couldn't run. Yeah, it was a fucking really intense time. I learned a lot about myself in injury time.
Yeah, so, injuries, they happen in every fighter's career. And there's 2 ways to look at it. You can obviously, I think most athletes get down in the dumps pretty early about it.
Yeah.
And that can cause a whole bunch of other issues because obviously you're out of routine.
Yep.
You're out of discipline.
Yep.
From a health perspective, you're not in a good frame of mind mentally, and then you combine that with the fact that you're not training. Chances are it's like, you probably blow out a little bit, from the eating side of things and all that kind of stuff, and then that just creates more of a downward spiral, right?
Yeah, it was a very hard time, and I learned a lot about myself, and I did a lot of probably wrong things in the time, like just partying and being stupid because I had nothing else, and probably because I was depressed. And then like putting weight on and stuff like that. But I also learned a lot about myself, like, because I've done this since I was 14 years old. So then I was at a point where I didn't have it, and I was like, fuck, I don't know who I am.
Yeah, your identity's attached to it.
Yeah, and it was. And like even every time you see someone, they're like, oh, when you're fighting next, like even your identity's attached like that to other people, not just yourself. So that was really, but I'm grateful it happened now.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I would be where I am in my life if I hadn't. Because at the time I was like, I wouldn't work a lot because I didn't care. I like worked the minimal I could to get by just because I wanted to train. And then I was very like cutting like ties with family. Not like bad, but I wouldn't go to family things. I didn't care. Like I wouldn't put extra time in. Like if I could casually say, yeah, in this 15 minutes I got free to have a coffee, that's cool. But I wouldn't go to family events because I couldn't eat the food. And like even partners and stuff like that, like having a relationship, I was like, no, I can't have it. Like I didn't want anything that didn't have anything to do with fighting. And then it was all taken away from me.
Yeah.
And it was an intense time to try and find who I was and realize there's things outside of fighting, and fighting at the end of the day is just a sport.
Yeah.
You know,
it's you know, and forgive any of my listeners who've heard me talk about this a million times, but like that, you know, I had the same experience. I worked in the automotive industry for 17 years. You know, a lot of my life was around that. My identity was around that. This guy that used to, you know, run dealerships and things like that. And then, you know, COVID happens, and then I have a disagreement with my employers over, you know, what you should and shouldn't do, or what people should and shouldn't be allowed to do to work. And, you know, ultimately that cost me my job. And yeah, like, it was like, okay, there goes my livelihood. I've got 3 kids at the time, 3 kids. And what do I do now?
Yeah.
Right. And you sort of, I guess, you know, I had a little bit of fortune in the sense that obviously, you know, when those things happen, I had a bit of a payout. So I was fine for a period of time to sort of like take stock and reevaluate, you know, what are the things that I wanted to do. But it was interesting from the perspective of like, you know, when it first happens, it's like, you know, maybe for the first month, you're still getting lots of phone calls. And then you're trying to explain to people, okay, oh, you know, this is what's happened, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. You know, oh, sorry for you, mate. And then it's like, oh, you know, is anyone else I can talk to? Right? Like, that's what the conversation is like. I was like, all right, fuck. Well, yeah, I'll refer you back to my manager. Like, I don't care. Like, you know, I'm not going to do the wrong thing by other people just because they did the wrong thing by me, because that's a reflection on me, not them.
Totally.
Right? I'd rather, you know, do the right thing because that's my integrity on the line. And then you sort of realize, okay, you know, all these people that you thought, not to say they aren't your friends, but they're not obviously as, you know, friend-like as you thought when you were a someone, right? Because now I was a no one, and it was like, oh, okay, I'm a no one now. So you sort of work out, okay, who are the friends that you'll actually continue to maintain relationships after this, right?
100%.
And so you would have gone through the same thing, right?
Yeah, same thing. And even it made me realize that I think now I'm like, you know what, when I'm done with Muay Thai will be done with me. You know, more so like within the scene and stuff like that. I'm like, it's all cool, but it was done. And like, you kind of pick up on things that people kind of don't care now. And so it made me realize, I'm like, okay, one day I'm not going to fight. And all these people around that I think care don't actually care. So that was like definitely another layer to it that I noticed.
So out of curiosity then, because like when you start to because there's 2 ways that it goes, right? You can either start thinking that, fuck, this is all pointless, right? And it's, you know, you take yourself to down this pathway of like, okay, well, I'm just gonna give it all up, or you go the opposite way, and it's like, well, what a blessing that I get an opportunity to do this stuff, and I'm gonna enjoy the ride for what it is. And like, it sounds to me like, you know, you're at this point now where you've come to that realization. It's like, I'm gonna enjoy it for as long as I enjoy it, and the day that I don't enjoy it, well, I don't have to do it anymore. Yeah. So talk me through that. I used
to always attach to, like, I used to say, like, I want to be a world champion. I want to be a world champion. I used to have like such a stigma in my head of this is what I'm going to do, you know, no matter what. And I'm kind of at a position now where obviously I'm like, yeah, I want to be a world champion, but I don't feel like this be all and end all, die if it happens, die if it don't. If one day I wake up and I decide this isn't serving me anymore, I'm not doing it. I don't care. I'm not going to go and try and drag myself through a fight camp, because if you don't really want it, you're going to get hurt, like, especially at this level. So I kind of am like, if I get to a point where I don't feel like I 100% want this, I'm not doing it. Like, I don't want to then be like trying to chase this world title just because that's what I said I wanted when I was 14 years old.
Yeah.
you know. And I kind of very much in this, particularly in the last fight camp that I did, realized I'm like, oh, I enjoy this process of a fight camp. I enjoy who I am when I'm doing a fight camp, you know. I enjoy the routine. I'm very much a routine person. I'm very much like the same thing. Like, even like I'll eat the same food for like 8 weeks. It doesn't bother me. I will eat the exact same thing for 8 weeks. Hyperfixate on things like that. But I enjoy that all my meals are prepped. I'm doing the right thing. I'm training. I know I get up and do this at this time. I know I get up and do this time. And I was like, oh, I enjoy who I am during a fight camp. And so I actually, like this last camp, I really, really enjoyed. More so just taking into perspective that was the part that I liked about it, rather than just dragging myself through it, because that's all I've ever done. And I've had camps like that before where it was like, I don't think I necessarily wanted to fight. I was just doing it because I didn't know how to do anything else, because I'm Katie the fighter.
Yeah. So then, aside from the partying and the negative side of things, like, you've obviously spent the time also reflecting, right, and self-reflecting, looking yourself in the mirror, and you sort of like have to, I always use this example of like, when you're young, you know, you're surrounded by your siblings, you're surrounded by parents, or then that becomes your friend group, and it's really easy to sort of like not spend any time with yourself.
Yeah.
And the day that, you know, maybe your friends go off and they end up in relationships, and like your friend group starts to diminish a little bit, or, you know, you're not with your siblings or your parents or your family, or you moved out of home and you're by yourself, and it's like you're starting to spend all this time with yourself, and you got to decide, like, do I actually like myself?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that would have been that time for you, because you could have been at the training room every day of the week, surrounded by other people, that it's really easy to not think about things, and you just push yourself so hard that it's like, okay, I train, I eat, I come home, I sleep, and then I just rinse and repeat.
Yeah, I put up a post a fair bit ago, talking about the identity crisis that I felt like I was having. I don't know if you listened to the Dominic Cruz podcast. Yeah, it's really good, and he talks about obviously he had these 3 back-to-back injuries, and kept getting out and stuff like that. And he talks about how physically he was like perfect. You know, he was so physically fit, and his conditioning and everything was insane. But on the inside, he was hollow, and it was because every problem in his life he physically worked it out. And I remember hearing that and thinking, fuck,
that's you.
Yeah. That's exactly how I felt. And I remember, like, at that period of my life, like, I was in such this, like, I don't know, I was in this way of like, I'm this fighter and I'm that, and I don't need anyone, like, and I'm fine by myself, and I'll do this, I'm going to fight, I'm going to win these titles, I don't care. And it was like, I almost was like stuck to this, like, trying to be this bad bitch stigma that didn't have any feelings and stuff like that. And I was just suppressing everything. And now looking at it, I'm like, wow, you're a sad little girl, aren't you? You were such a sad little girl. And then, like, when I didn't have that, I had lots of time to self-reflect on what I was doing, and realizing that how much of a front that was. You know, it was such a front. And then I remember identifying how low I was in that period of time, and I went to a few like women's circles and stuff like that I knew some of my friends were going to. And I remember at the time, so I went to this one women's circle, and I kind of, same thing, I was kind of had my nose up to it, like, what's this going to be, some dumb healing shit, whatever.
Did they bust out the crystals?
There were no crystals. But I remember thinking, oh, fuck, what's this going to be? And then next thing I know, I'm like, give me the talking stick, and I'm just crying, just trauma dumping.
Wow.
Everyone. And yeah, it kind of, I've had like a lot of realizations since then. Like we talked before about how you're different versions of yourself through, like, in such short periods, like who I am now. People who knew me 5 years ago have no idea who I am. No idea. Like, I feel like a completely different person. And I can identify things I did, and I know why I did them, and I know it was like a lot of the things were a front. And yeah, and it was even interesting. So then when I started to go through that, and I feel like I did get a little bit softer and got it more in touch with myself. And I remember thinking, am I going to fight as good because I'm not angry? And I remember thinking that, I'm like, oh my God, what if I can't fight as good because I'm not angry? And now it still works. I'm still from Penrith when I get in that ring.
No, I think if anything, it makes you fight better.
Yeah.
You know, because there's so much of the sport that is actually mental. And when you get yourself into this place that you're comfortable with both who you are inside and outside the ring, like, the only word I could use for that is like it's cohesive. Like it's all working towards the same goal.
Yep.
Because otherwise it's like you've got this part of you, that the physical part of you that's like, I'm going to do this. But then the mental aspect is like pulling you in a slightly different direction where it's like, oh, but in the back of your mind, there's these niggling things that you've never, really contemplated or thought about. They actually hold you back.
Yep.
Like people go, oh, no, I don't believe in that shit. And then until the day that it hits you, and then you do believe in it, right? Like it's like, I was talking to you about the podcast I did with Tony, my friend who was a police officer. And, he was like, yeah, I never used to believe in mental health and all that shit. Like, he was tough guy, cop, blah, blah, blah. And then, there was one thing that broke the camel's back. And then when that broke the camel's back, it was just like, okay, all this stuff started pouring out of him.
Yep.
And now it's like, okay, you've got to face this stuff at some point in time. Like, I think that's, it's funny because, like even as children, like, as we grow, we develop ourselves, and then it's like if we never got those skills, and it's not through not to say it was bad parenting or anything like that. It's just to say our parents, they never had it together in the first place. Mm-hmm. When we're kids, we look up at our parents and we think that there was this magical time and it's all a fairy tale. Mm-hmm. And then you get older and you realize like they'll probably dumber than us, or more emotionally retarded than us trying to work it out.
Yeah, that generation, God, like even so, when I look back on my childhood, I am grateful for my parents, and I am grateful for everything they've done for me. But I can see, like growing up, we were very much we weren't allowed to talk about anything bad. So you weren't allowed. If I said this happened with this person, no, I don't like it, they'd be like, no, like it was like you couldn't talk about it.
Wow.
So I think that probably led to a lot of the fact that I bottle things up, and then as I've gotten older and kind of realized that's the thing now, I just word vomit every time. If something makes me upset, I'm like, I'm upset.
You gotta vent it.
But at the time it was very much, and I even remember like kind of when I was 18 and stuff like that, in relationships, if something was bothering me, it was almost like I physically couldn't get the words out. I remember people would be like, what's wrong? And it was like there was like something stuck in my throat and I couldn't say it. But I definitely think it's that, but that's just from that generation. So their parents were the same. It was like you couldn't talk about anything bad, you couldn't say anything.
Yeah.
And that's why I very much advocate now for saying how you feel all the time, because it's so important. And a lot of the time, if you do say how you feel, you'll realize there's like everyone's fucked.
Yeah.
Everyone's fucked up, and it's comforting, like sometimes even I feel like you'll see a reel that has some quote on it that you really deeply feel, and then you look at it and you see it's liked by 20,000 other people, and you're like, wow, we are all in the same boat, and it's kind of comforting. And I think that can be one of the really good things about social media, is how it gives us the ability to connect with each other and talk about real things. But there's also people say that you only see the good stuff. That's why I like to talk as much as I do.
I need to get some more of your algorithm, because my algorithm's fucked up. Shout out to my mates who send me all the worst memes in the world. I bring this up because I was telling somebody else about it last night, but Adele, who won ADCC gold for jiu-jitsu, and I brought up, because she's a lesbian, and I brought up that the meme that says like lesbian is the best base for combat sports, and I thought everybody had seen this meme, and Adele was like she was good about it, she's laughing, but I was like, well, you haven't seen this meme? Like, anyway, it was just obviously, so that's what you see on my feed anyway. When it came to working through some of those things, like, did you do anything like journaling or anything like that? Like, how, I guess when you were sort of working through those things for yourself, like, were there any things that really helped you to sort of spend that time? Apart from, obviously, the women's groups were one thing. But
yeah, mainly in the women's groups and stuff like that. And then just people I met through there who were I kind of developed like stronger female friendships as well, which was something that I feel like I really desperately needed. So that helped as well. Journaling doesn't really, I've talked about doing it, but I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do that. And then I don't end up doing it, stuff like that. But it's lots of just sitting alone, quiet with myself, and self-reflection has been something that, like, almost like a meditation, I think, has been something that's very different for me. And when I lost training and the ability to just ignore it and train, was like, it made everything become so evident. And I think back now for how I felt in certain phases, and I'm like, I can't believe I just like kept going. Like, I remember, so one of my fights I was fighting, so I'd turned pro and I'd had 4 professional fights and I won all of them. and then I was going over to Perth to fight a girl who was I don't know if she was like a former world champion or something, but she was very highly regarded and she'd done it for a long time, and it was a very big thing, and everyone's saying, oh, this is such a step up fight and stuff like that. And I remember that period of my life, how mentally unwell I was, to a point where I remember driving one time and just crying and thinking, I need to schedule myself. Like, I was like, I'm not okay.
Wow.
And then I'd just go to the gym and I would train, and no one there knew that these were the things that I was having, and I was just so like depressed, and I didn't even know what it was, but I think it was just because I'd bottled everything up. I had nothing other than fighting, and then I was like not talking to other people because I was so like, oh fuck, I'm fighting this girl, and there's a lot of pressure on it. It's going to be a really hard fight, and what if I'm not as good as I think I was? And then I was just watching fights every single day. Like everything was fighting. And so every other thing in my life, anything else that was going on, money problems or anything, I was just ignoring. So it was all built up in this one ball. And I was driving to the gym thinking about that, thinking I need to go to a mental hospital because I'm not okay. And then you just go and you train. So it's like, it's just one of those things I think about now. You just you don't know what people are going through, you know? Because then people would see me come in and they'd say, oh, Katie the Pro comes in here and now she's training and she's in a bad mood. And I was like, no, I'm fucking really struggling.
Yeah, mentally.
Yeah. And then, like I said, it's one of those things, you know, everyone goes through it. So
Everybody's battling their own demons, right?
Yeah.
I always like asking people about this, and I think, you know, to give you some time to think about, right? But the question is, like, if you had to boil yourself down to one core value, like a value that you live your life by, you know, what would that be? And the reason why I ask this, and I think it's interesting, is because at different points in your life, it's different things, right? So to give you an example, for me, you know, when I was growing up, it probably would have been like success.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like that would have been the core value that I'd want to achieve. I want to be successful more than anything else. And, you know, I can tell you some of the factors that go into that. You know, obviously, you know, my parents were having a rough time. You know, my brother's 7 years older than me, so he had moved out. I was the one dealing with all the problems, you know, fending for myself. And so, you know, was working full time, was studying full time, and I was like driven to like just, you know, like I had this thing where my brother, I think he finished, he enjoyed, I think, his uni life in the sense of like, you know, he spent time overseas, he traveled, he did all that sort of stuff. And so I think he maybe took like an extra year on his degree than what he should have.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the opposite. I finished my degree a year earlier because I was in this rush that I wanted to be successful. And then I got to this point where when I achieved my goal, you know, like my goal was to run a dealership, and then I got there, and then I realized like it didn't change my life one bit.
Yeah.
And then I'm like thinking, fuck, did I sell myself short? Because like I said, this is the goal. I got there like 4 years earlier than I thought. I didn't have a next step. I didn't have any of that like planned. I was like, oh, once I get here, life is going to be different.
Yeah.
And life wasn't different.
Yep.
You know, I turned up to work the next day and I'm just like, oh, well, I'm running this dealership now.
Yep.
And yeah, like I was getting paid well and all that sort of stuff, but it's like my life didn't change. Like I'm still working hard and all this sort of stuff. And that's when I started to like, you know, think about, okay, well, actually, no, that wasn't the point where I started to think about it. It was after like, you know, because when I got into that role, then it was like, I'm going to prove a point of why I got the job. And it was all me, and very ego driven from that perspective, until I realized that, you know, in that capacity of running a business and doing those sorts of things, like I've got the responsibility of all these people. And the best way for me to be successful in that role was to make the people under me successful. Mm-hmm. So that was a period of, you know, a few years where I had to sort of like change my whole identity, because like when you're an employee, so to speak, everything is task oriented. You know, you just do the task, get the job done. When you're a fighter, you know, you stay disciplined, you fight, you do your nutrition, you do all that, your strength con, all that sort of stuff, and then you go and fight, you compete, and then you just rinse and repeat. And basically, like there's a cool little parallel between like the automotive industry and the fight game, in the sense of, in the automotive industry, you're only as good as your last month.
Yep.
So based on your sales,
your last fight. Yep. Same. Yeah.
Same. Right. So you know you spend all this time, you're working, you work so hard. At the end of the month, like whether it was a good or a bad month, it starts all over again the next day.
Yep.
Right. The same thing in the fight game. No matter how good that fight was, like you win, you lose, whatever. The next day you go back to training, and it's like, okay, here we go again. Yep. And that becomes like you start chasing the month.
Yeah.
And then before you know it, the year's gone and you go, what the fuck happened to my year? Right? You chase these fight camps and you chase these fights and you have 4 or 5 fights in a year. And then it's like, where did my year go? Like, what else did I achieve?
Yep.
And so then I guess, where I've gotten to in terms of like thinking about that core value is that I came to this point in my life where, to me, like, and when I say a core value, it's like, if I can't live my life this way, it's not worth living.
Yeah.
Right? And to me, that became transparency. And I chose the word transparency over the word honesty because when you think about honesty, it's like the same sort of experience that you had as a kid where it's like, if you don't have anything good to say, don't say it. Like your parents ingrained that into you. So it's like, is that really being honest though? Yeah. Right? And so transparency for me was like the next sort of rung up from that where it's like, yeah, like being transparent means that I'm going to be able to I'm going to have the ability to say things that people might not want to hear.
Yep.
But I'm doing it from a good place in the sense of I'm not trying to do it to like, put somebody down. I'm trying to be transparent with somebody because perhaps you've never had that feedback before. Or perhaps nobody's ever taken that time to go and say to that person that, hey, do you know if you do things like this, this is how it could, the potential outcomes and things like that. And so then, I guess, and it sort of ties in with like, the whole podcast thing. And like, when I decided to do a podcast, I realized, I bear my soul for everybody to see. So I can't do that in a fake way. Like I can't have a persona to say, this is where Johnny App starts and Johnny App ends. Yeah. Right. So like to me, it's congruent that, I'm transparent with every facet of my life.
Yep.
So I guess, giving you plenty of time to sort of think about that.
It's a hard one.
It's a hard one, especially when you trying to boil it down to one value, right?
And, and I think it changes.
Yeah.
It changes all the time. My answer for fucking probably the start of the year to now may be different,
Yeah.
But right in this moment, my like core value for what I want is just happiness.
Yeah.
So like you were talking before, how you said you got that job and then you were like, okay, I did this and now what? It's going to fix everything.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It's the same, like you get post-fight depression and that the same thing that Dominic Cruz podcast, he talks about how when he won the world title and he talks about, he's like, the greatest like victory of my life was knowing I'd be happy without this. And that's, I think, why I pulled away from like the wanting the world title, because the same thing, you get post-fight depression. So you fight and you win and then it's like, oh, now what? And even you see things like Tyson Fury talks about after he won the world title and they're like, what are you going to do now? And he goes, I'm going to be very depressed. And it's so real because you aim everything and you're like, I'm going to get this and it's going to change everything, and then you hit it and then you think everything is going to change and it's like, oh no, it doesn't. And now I just like everything I do now, I'm not attaching anything to I refuse to attach anything to goals, because life changes. Like if my back was really bad and I couldn't fight again, then
that goes out the window.
Yeah, that's it. So I don't attach it to anything now. It's just what I try to move as authentically to myself as I can. I do what feels good, and if it's not feeling good or if it's not feeling right, I'm not doing it. Yeah. And it's like the word no. If something I think is wrong, no, not doing it. I'm so set on that. If something I know is going to make me happy, I'm going to do it. So I just try to every single day move in a way and do things that I know are going to make me happy. And obviously, like, it's hard and we make mistakes, and inevitably we're human, we're flawed. But I just want to move every way to this point where I'm happy, because if I can't pour from an empty cup, so people in my life and people around me, I can't be great for them if I'm not happy myself,
Yeah.
So I would say if I'm happy, then I'm a better person, then I can show up for other people, then I can do better things, then I can show up at training better and be there for my training partners, I can show up for my family, So everything, I'm very much, if I'm happy in myself, which I feel like I wasn't for a very long time, then I can be the best person that I can be.
Out of curiosity, when you're talking about, because you brought up the, that everybody's flawed, we're all broken kind of thing a couple of times. Are you religious at all?
It's a funny question. So I when I was a kid, we went to church a little bit and stuff like that. My parents were very much like not hardcore at all. Like we went a little bit and stuff like that. And then I went away from it for a very long time, and I was like, religion's fucked and stuff like that. But in the last year or so, I've actually been reconnecting with it. And actually, for my last fight, I was my partner thinks I'm insane. My last fight camp, I was listening to like sermons, like Bible sermons, while I was running.
Yep.
So I'd get up in the morning at 4 a.m., put my headphones on, and put a sermon on, and I'd listen to people preaching while I was running.
Yeah.
So I come and I go in and I go and I'm like, I am, I'm not, I am. So it's a difficult relationship.
I think the word difficult is an adjective there. The key word there is actually that you have a relationship.
Yeah.
Right. And I think you know, I think it's one of those things that, you know, people's relationship with God or with faith is like a very personal journey, and everybody is like at a different stage in that journey. But it's a beautiful thing. Like, and like for me, like I could pick up on it just by the words that you're using. And I think that's a really beautiful thing that you're like exploring that, because I feel like there's no greater, and this sort of will tie into another point that I wanted to sort of bring up with you, is like, you know, hearing you talking about you want this happiness within yourself, right? I often bring this up to people especially with athletes, you know, like I've seen plenty of athletes that like get depressed. And when I talk to them, I always bring up this concept that I've thought a lot about, is that like when people die, what is the most common phrase that we say when people die? We say rest in peace, right? We don't say, I wish that you're successful. I wish that you're happy. I wish that you're fucking got the most amount of money, like the Asians would love to say, right? Like, you know, Ronnie Cheng has a whole bit about, you know, when we say Happy New Year in Chinese, Gong Xi Fa Cai, which means hope you get rich, right? So that's synonymous with Asians, right?
Talking about funny.
Money. So Ronnie Chang has this whole bit about it. But anyway, so when people die, you know, we always say rest in peace. And like, especially for athletes, because athletes are always in a rush.
Yeah.
You know? And then like if you just take a step back, and if I was to say, well, what is the end destination for everybody? We all end up in the ground. We're all dead. Right, that is the end destination for anybody that is alive, is that we all eventually will die, right? And so from that perspective, if when we die, all that the people around us would wish for us is that we're at peace, well, that sort of actually gives you a bit of a guiding principle for how you should live life. Like, you need to find this peace within yourself, that, you know, you're not really fazed by what happens in life. Like, I think, you know, ultimately, and to sort of, you know, go back to some of those like sort of Bible sort of quotes, but there's like a quote, you know, about you know, I've come so that you can live life to the full, right? Now, what is a life that is full? Is a life that is full just all happiness? No, it's the ups and downs. You know, I like to use the analogy of like, if you could only see one color, like if all you could see was black, you wouldn't be able to differentiate anything else. You need to be able to see the different shades to really appreciate what color is.
Yeah.
You know, if you only saw the world in just black and white, well, and if it was like two-tone, right? Like, still, you got contrast, yeah. You got an ability to differentiate things. Yeah. But the beauty, I guess, in life is that we have this full spectrum and shades and different colors of like what happens throughout our life.
Yeah, totally. And then so while I've been kind of exploring this as well, it's funny, I feel like I kept having these moments where I feel like I was like, God's trying to talk to me.
Yeah.
Like, so I had these moments where I'd started to really think in depth about it, and I was listening to lots of podcasts and people preaching and stuff like that. And then one day I was at work and I just messaged my brother and I said, would you want to go to church one day? And he sent me a voice memo back. He was at work and he goes, Katie. And so we never talked about this. We'd never talked about like religion or anything like that. He sent me a voice memo. He goes, Katie, I swear to God, last night I was laying in bed and I was laying there and I was thinking, I was like, God, if you're real, give me a sign. And then out of nowhere, we've never spoke about this or anything. The next day I messaged him saying, do you want to go to church?
Yeah.
This one day. And I was like, man, that's crazy. And then I had another experience where, it was in the morning and I'd got up and I'd looked in the mirror and I was like, wow, you're so fat. And it's part of like a body dysmorphia that comes with fighting and cutting weight. And I felt pretty awful. And then I went down to the beach and I got a coffee and I was sitting at the beach, just looking out. And then I sat on my phone and I Googled Bible verses about perspective. And it just so happened that the verse that came up, I couldn't tell you word for word, but it was something along the lines about not caring about our image and how we look in our clothes. And I thought, out of all the things that could have come up on the internet, out of all the Bible verses and all the famous ones, it wasn't a famous one or anything. The one that popped up on my phone was one about caring about how your physical appearance looks. And I was like, fuck, God's really trying to talk to me here, or I'm going schizophrenic or something. But and then and then I remember just listening to like how you're talking about how we all end up in the ground, and then I remember listening to something, and I went for a walk, and you walk past Clovelly, that there's a graveyard that it has all the tombstones there. And I remember walking past, and it was a really nice day, and I was listening to podcasts, and I remember looking at that, and I was like, it doesn't say on any of those tombstones she weighed this much. And I'm here beating myself up over something like that. And that's another thing that I thought about, and like same thing with fighting. And I remember looking at those tombstones as well and thinking things. I was like, it says mother, it says daughter, it says sister. Like it, like, you know, those are the kind of things that matters, is the people in your life, and not like the kind of external things.
Yeah, that's yeah, it's interesting actually. I haven't thought about the tombstone thing, because that is what is usually written. It's like, you know, the relationships.
Doesn't say it was a really good mechanic.
No, it doesn't say it was a really good mechanic. It doesn't say he was a DP or like, you know, runs car dealerships or anything.
Yeah.
Like. Doesn't say. Won't say he's a podcaster. Like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like.
Yeah, and that was something that I thought about when I was doing it, because yeah, like, and then so like body dysmorphia and stuff was something that I really struggled with, which I think played a lot into my mental health for sure.
So, out of curiosity, if you don't mind sharing, like, when did that start? Like,
it probably got progressively worse. So like I've been doing this, so I've been cutting weight since I was 16 years old.
Yep.
So that's weighing yourself every day. People asking you what you weigh, like every day. And I think it slowly crept in to a point where I didn't really know what was happening. And then now, again, with social media, we're a lot more aware of it, because people are talking about it now and how bad it can get. And it got progressively worse, and it got really bad for me at one stage. And it's still something that I struggle with today, for sure. Even so, after my last fight, so this fight I fought at 60 kilos, and I only did that because it was the 8 woman, it was the money. It's not a weight class that I would do. And I weighed myself for the first time, I think like 2 days ago. And I've been very much like, oh my God, I can't believe how much weight you've put on. What are you doing? And I weighed myself, and I was about 5 kilos lighter than I'd convinced myself that I was. And I was like, okay, body dysmorphia is real, and like it's very dangerous, because you get into this state of like, I was like you'll start looking at your body when you're cutting weight, and you're fucking dehydrated, and you're like you're
unhealthy.
You're
on
literally
death's door.
unhealthy on death's door. And I'm like, damn, look at that line on my stomach.
Yeah.
And you get attached to that image, and it's and then you go back to a normal size, and you feel enormous. Like you feel enormous. And I was actually saying to someone the other day, so I don't know if you know this, but if you get a nose job, funnily enough, if you get a nose job,
okay,
this is relevant. If you get a nose job, they make you then go to therapy afterward, because you can't, like, your brain can't associate the fact that this is your face, because it can be such a big change to how you look. People get completely depressed. Even some people kill themselves because you become so innately depressed, because your brain can't notice that that's who you are.
Really?
Yeah. I didn't know this either. So,
okay.
But so going off that, I thought of, wow, this would be a very similar thing for fighters, because you see yourself in this depleted state, and then you go back to a different way, even if it's a little bit, you see yourself completely differently. Like, it completely warps your brain.
Yeah.
So if people have to get therapy and stuff like that for like a minor like nose adjustment, imagine like a gap of 8 kilos if you say that, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it can seem...
Some of those weight cuts are massive, right? And also, you know, not to mention you got like, you know, the professional photographers there, good lighting, like you look at your best and you're like, yeah, I look amazing. And then, then post-fight, it's like you had the binge. Oh, it must have been that meal that I just ate like right after the fight.
Yeah.
When really like they had zero impact on it.
Yeah. Yep, totally. And you get so, and like, I've gone horrible ways where I'm like weighing myself 3 times a day because I'm freaking out. And yeah, so it's something that I'm still working on today, and I know everyone struggles with. And I just say to everyone, people like with the fighting now, I'm like, get a nutritionist. Get a nutritionist. It's so important. Even if it's an amateur fight, just do it. Like, people have in their mind, oh, this person's just going to tell me to eat chicken and broccoli. That's not how it is at all. One, it makes you a better cook as well. Yeah. But I did my first 18 fights not knowing that I could eat bread in a fight camp, because I didn't have
just
that.
Cut out all the carbs.
Yeah, like just dumb stuff like that, because I didn't know. You know, so anyone, I'm like, get a nutritionist, I promise you, and it'll stop you from, like, I did a lot of those cuts by myself, and now I've got a real warped relationship with food, and I don't even, like, I'm even struggling now, so I'm having a bit of a break because I'm having some problems with my hormones. but I'm having a break and I'm like, oh, I don't know how, like I'm really struggling like how to live not trying to lose weight, you know? And but it's just because I've done that since I was 14 years old.
Yeah.
You know, and my family, like there's history of obesity in my family and stuff like that, and they didn't really know. Same thing, the knowledge wasn't out there for how it is, you know. My parents grew up in a state where it was like, eat 1,200 calories and you'll lose weight. And yeah.
1,200 calories, like
that was very much like the old school thing was everyone's like, you have to eat 1,200 calories to lose weight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things I think, you know, whenever you can get objective data, it's like, yeah, I can see you wear a Whoop strap, you know, I used to have an Oura ring, so that's what I used to wear to track all my sleep and things like that. But I think anytime you can get objective data, like my wife, it's funny because she'll always be like, I tell you these things all the time. And I'm like, yeah, but it's like different when you have data, right? Like she's like, why don't you just listen to me? Like, you know, she's like, oh, if it's not being said on a podcast or one of these people that you listen to, you're not going to listen. And I'm like, yeah, but like, you know, it's not just about like me hearing it. It's like then getting the objective data. Like when I got the Oura ring, it was really insightful because like, yeah, like the things that people used to tell you that your parents would even tell you, right? Like, oh, you know, like try not to eat too much before bed and don't drink too much water before bed, or like don't drink alcohol, you know, like all these sorts of things. And then when you actually like have objective data and you look at, okay, I had some drinks last night and look at my sleep and it was horseshit, or I ate really late, or I ate too much. And you have this data, then it's like, okay, now you can make better informed choices, right? And once because everybody gets impacted differently, and I think we all go through this, or at least for me, I went through, you know, the phase of like thinking that I'm indestructible. So it was like, it didn't really matter, right? Yeah. And look, you know, to be fair, like, yeah, I probably am, you know, fairly fortunate genetically where like I can eat what I want and I don't necessarily gain much weight.
Fuck you.
Yeah, well, that's exactly how my wife feels, right? Because she's like, you know, she has to work so hard at it, and for her, it's like, for her, it's probably like 80 to 90% diet and only 10 to 20% exercise. But for me, it's the opposite. Like for me, it's like 80 to 90% exercise and 10 to 20% diet. Like I could eat like shit for a week and not look much different. And so that's why I think it's interesting when you get objective data. Like it's different for everybody. Knowing what works for your own body is really, really important. And so, you know, the fact that you brought up working with a nutritionist, do you want to give him a shout out? Who you working with?
Strive dietitian,
hey,
Christoph.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. So I've been working with him. A very, very patient man because I've said it before, I'm a very hyper emotional person and I've had many mental breakdowns too. many mental breakdowns this last camp. Even I'm messaging him. I'm like, tell me you're not worried. He's like, I'm not worried.
I love Christopher because he's a very switched on guy, but he sounds so bogan. Like his accent.
He wants to be from the West.
He
wishes he was from the West. Yeah. But yeah, so I've been working with him. I've done my last 3 fight camps with him. And obviously we did 60 kilos, which I knew was going to be a stretch because I'm pretty big for 61 as is. And then we were doing 60 kilos and I kind of briefly mentioned it and then it kind of just happened. I was like, okay, so this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
And then so we did that. And then same thing, we're working. So all these years of dieting wrong and stuff like that, I've developed a bit of a binge eating disorder. And so we're working on doing stuff with that as well. But yeah, I definitely, it's like lots of steps to get there. Like you're rewiring years and years of things in your brain. And even I think with girls as well, like I feel like we're told that we should be dieting and eating salads from being little girls, you know.
I hope I'm rueful of the day that happens to my girls. Yeah. You know, like I was having this conversation with my 8-year-old the other day in the car and you know, because like she's getting to that age where she's starting to ask questions about, you know, getting like where do babies come from, all that sort of stuff. And I said to her in the car, I said, you know, Cadence, one day you're going to think like right now you think daddy knows everything and you're happy to ask daddy all these questions. And I want you to always remember that daddy will be able to answer whatever questions you've got. But one day you're going to think that daddy is like the stupidest person in the world. Right? This is what I said to her. And she started pissing herself laughing. And I said, no, I'm serious. One day you're going to wake up and you're going to be like, daddy's stupid. He doesn't know anything. And you probably want to like, you know, ask your friends, you know, whatever questions. But, you know, I want you to know that like I'm always, you know, going to be happy to tell you the answer. Yeah. You know, and it's a hard one because I know it can be uncomfortable for a lot of parents, like, you know, dealing with those sorts of questions. Like, I'll share this story because I think it's funny. There was this point sometime this year where my kids came, well, my two at school, so my 8-year-old and my now 6-year-old, so my eldest daughter and my son, they'd come home from school, and my daughter starts going to me, "Daddy, is this a swear word?" And then she's like, "Fuck." I'm like, "Okay, baby, it's okay. Let's at least get it right. So this is how you say it, and this is what it means. This is why we don't use it." And like, so just trying to explain to them, because I know some parents would be like, "Oh, you can't use those words." I'm like, I want you to know that those words exist, and people do use them, but in day-to-day conversation, you don't need to use them. And then the problem is that by virtue of association, because my 8-year-old knows it, I got a kindergarten boy who now knows all those words.
Mm-hmm.
And then he came home the other day, and this probably get me cancelled, but he goes to me, "Daddy, can I ask you if this is a swear word?" And I was like, "Sure." And he goes, "Gay." I'm like, "Who's using that word?" And I'm like, "My son, you can't use that word like in conversation."
Give me the context.
Oh no,
Can I hear it in a sentence?
It's like in the in the typical boyish way of like saying something is GAY, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my goodness, like yeah. But anyway, these are the joys of what we go through, right?
Yeah.
So talk us through the Eliminator, because obviously 3 rounds to win, $20,000. I guess the first question I want to ask you is like, how did it come about where like, when they asked you to participate, or like it was like, do you think you want to participate, or?
Yeah, so I think we got sidetracked before.
Yeah.
So I fought in April. So I come back from my injury. I fought in April and I won.
Yep.
And that was great. And then I fought for the WBC International title against a girl who's ranked number 1 in New Zealand. So I went over there and I fought, and I lost on points on that one. And then so me and my partner decided, I've been flown over New Zealand, may as well stay there. And so we had a holiday. So I fought in New Zealand. That happened. This was my old gym, Penrith, with Reese. So I fought and I lost. And then we were in New Zealand, and then we drove to Queenstown, and we were there. And we were at this really, really fancy steak place. And I was in my head after that. I was like, okay, I want a break. Like, I want to have a bit of a rest after this. And we're at this steak place, drunk as fuck, like absolutely smashed. And Reese rings me, and I'm like, fuck. And I answer the phone, and he's like, "You want to win $20,000? And then he kind of rattled off. He's like, "Oh, they're talking about doing this. It's 8 women. There'll probably be these girls in it." And I'm drunk as, and I'm like, "Fuck yeah!" And I hung up, and then me and my partner were talking about it, and we're both wasted. And then I woke up the next day, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm supposed to be having a break."
Yeah.
But yeah. So and then that was it. And then I kind of So we spent that time in New Zealand together, and I came back, and I just had this other epiphany. I remember being at home in Penrith and being like, I need to leave. I need to move right now. Where I am isn't in accordance with me. I need to move. So then I decided that I was going to move out east and come be with my partner.
Wow.
And
just like that. Like it was just like, I'm not comfortable here anymore.
Yeah, I'm going.
Yeah.
And so and I was thinking at the time, and I was like, okay, like maybe I'll stay and do this. But then I was like, no, I'm going. So then I went, and I went and I met up with Aram, and I told him this is what I'm doing, and I want to do it with you. And he was like, yeah, all right, and took me on to train for it. And at the time, so because I kind of had in my head, I was in a weird stage with Muay Thai. I feel like I've had like this weird, toxic, great relationship with Muay Thai. It's weird. Like sometimes I'm like, oh, I hate you, and I never want to see you again. Other times I'm like, no, I'm kidding, I love you. Like, it's weird. And I think a lot of people can relate to that, especially people who have done it from a young age. But yeah, so I was prepping for this fight, and I think it was like 15 weeks out before it was even announced. And I remember coming home from work, and I just had this massive breakdown, and I was like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to fight anymore. I'm done. Like, I'm done. I hate this. I don't want to do it. And I don't know where it came from. It just completely spiraled. And maybe probably also a big component of that was I was freaking out about making the weight, about going to 60 kilos was probably a factor in that, because I was like, fuck, I don't want to do this. I don't want to cut the weight. I'm sick of it. I hate this. And I had this big breakdown and this cry to my partner, and I was like, oh, I think I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. I hate it. And he was very much like, he's very, very supportive. And he was like, whatever you want to do, like, it's up to you. He's like, I don't think this opportunity will come again, but if you're done, you're done. And I said to myself, I was like, okay, I'm going to give this 2 weeks. I'm going to give it 2 weeks to decide. And then I was training and I gave it 2 weeks and I kind of still was a bit like, I'm okay. And then I kept going and going. And then I was like, no, fuck yeah, I'm doing this. I'm fucking doing this.
Yeah.
And I feel like I kind of fell in love again with the training and stuff like that. I feel like maybe the change of environment was really good. Like, you change and you freshen things up and you get a different perspective and it feels like fun again. And I think the factor of it being fighting 3 times in one night, it was something new. I haven't done that before. It's like a new challenge in its own. And then the closer it got, the more I got excited. I was like, fuck yeah, I'm going to do this. And I love this. And even so, when I decided I was going to do it, I was kind of like, oh, maybe I'll do this and retire. And then as closer it got, I was like, no, I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to keep doing this. I love this. So it was a complete emotional fucking roller coaster to this one. And I don't know where it stemmed from or why it happened, but yeah, and then it all paid off.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. So then, talk us through the fights. Obviously, it's a challenge to do 3 fights in one night. How did you feel going into that first fight? Like, and I guess when you have this in your mind that you got 3 fights to do, did that change your game plan to how you normally fight?
No. And even like we didn't like people like, I heard a few other people say they were doing all different kinds of training and stuff like that. And obviously my training was different because I'd completely moved gym. So the way they trained was completely different. But I didn't do anything specific. Like I didn't do 3 sets of 3 rounds sparring different people. Like there was no specific thing. And in my head I was like, just show up and do the Muay Thai. And one thing with me is I'm conditioned, and that's one thing I think people know when they fight me as well, is that I will come at you the whole fight. And I like, even when I train, I always in my head I go, I don't gas. Like it's just something I mentally say to myself. So I knew like I was like, just show up, just do the Muay Thai, and that's it. And then so when the first fight happened, so the way they did the draw was they would flip a card. So the person at the weigh-ins, so we all weighed in, and then the MC would flip a card and say someone's name, and then you go up and you flip a card and you fight whoever.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it was cool. And then so I ended up getting flipped first. And I was probably one of the bigger favorites for it. Like they were posting lots of things of like people giving their bets, and I was one of the favorites, and I got flipped first. And then I went up and I flipped my card, and I got a girl called Olivia Kerr from Canberra, who I thought was someone who got overlooked when people were giving their predictions and stuff like that. I think Olivia is a really very good fighter. I know that gym produced very tough fighters as well. And I thought I was kind of in a set of, I was like, oh, I think this is good. I think it's good to get like a hard fight up first when you're fresh.
Get out of the way.
Yeah. So that was good. And then ended up, the way they flipped the cards ended up being, it was like, so she's from Canberra, New South Wales, same. It ended up being like New South Wales versus New South Wales, WA versus WA, Melbourne versus Melbourne. So it's like everyone from the same states ended up fighting. So yeah, and then going into the first one, I feel like my first fight, I think I was a bit jumpy. Maybe like subconsciously doing it. Like this, I remember getting to the venue and I remember thinking, what the fuck am I doing? And I just remember walking and I was like, how do I get myself into this shit?
3 fights one night. What am I doing?
And so then like we were going to be the first one out of the eliminator fight because we flipped first. And then so it felt very rushed. So I first got there and they brought us all in the rings and we were the second fight of the night. So everything was kind of rushed as well. And it was like, oh, go. Like it wasn't perfect. And then we fought and I felt like I was a little bit jumpy and I got the win on that one. It was a hard fight. We just kind of stood there and just punched holes through each other. And then I got the win for that one. And then so I went backstage and I remember kind of subconsciously in my head thinking, oh, I didn't want to kick because I didn't want to bang up my shins. And then I could feel like we were just hitting each other. And I was like, oh, fuck it, I don't care. I've got to win this to get through. So then just started kicking. And then so I got the win and then I went backstage and it was pretty much straight away, sit down, ice packs, like bang, smash the ice packs on your legs and then just sat there watching the other people fight. And then so I was just sitting there and I was talking to one of the girls who came down with me and then a few times like people I knew came back in and like had a little, like spoke to me a little bit. My brother came backstage and he came up to me and he goes, fucking check the fucking kicks. And I was like, okay. And then so I watched the fights and then I watched and I saw who I was going to fight next. I was going to fight one of the girls from WA. And then so I pretty much just sat there with things taped to my legs and ate some Allen snakes.
Allen snakes.
Yeah.
A little bit of sugar.
Yeah, that was the advice from Christoph.
Yep. Bit of glucose.
Yeah. So I had that, and then it was like, all right, a couple fights out now, get up, shadow box, get ready. And so I took the ice packs off my legs, redid the Thai oil, had a little bit of a shadow box, and then went back out there and I fought Paris Rose from WA. And that was a really fun fight. Paris is actually someone I really like. Like we call each other our pen pals. Like we used to always talk on Instagram. And then when this got announced, we hadn't like spoken ages. It's kind of funny. And then so we got in there, and even like I got in the ring and I got like a real mean face, and I could kind of almost feel a little bit of me. I was like, I kind of like you. I don't want to fight you a little bit. But yeah, so then we fought and I won that one. And that was a really fun fight. And I felt like as it got on, I got progressively better. Like each fight, I felt like I got like my confidence grew and I got better in each one. And I remember in that fight, I remember body punching Paris. And I remember I could see like we had like a few little moments where like I'd hit body punch her and we'd like look at each other and we were like, yeah, I know that. we had a few little moments. We actually had a moment as well. I kicked her and her boob kind of came out, and then the ref didn't really know what's happened, and I was like, woo! It's okay if if women objectify women.
Oh, there's going to be a whole bunch of people that are going to be watching that fight now. What was it was Katie Mitchell
at 1 minute in
Paris Rose. Just asking for a friend.
Sorry, Paris. But yeah, and I don't think, and then a few people asked me, they're like, oh, I didn't know what happened. I was like, yeah, her boob came out, and I just cheered because I was like, yeah, it is. Yeah, and so we had a few little moments where like a body punch it, and then I felt like I really wanted to chase it when I knew it happened, but also when you throw that body rip in Muay Thai, you're open to get elbowed
in the face,
and I didn't want to get cut, so I was kind of like fighting demons. I'm like, I want to throw it, but I don't want to get elbowed. So I got that win on that one. Same thing, jumped out the ring, and I was getting like real G'd up each time, like getting real pen like I'm screaming to people in my crowd. I'm like, one more to go, one fucking more. My alter ego coming out. And then so then same thing, went backstage, ice on the shins, wrapped them up, sitting there, watched who I was going to fight next, and then I was going to fight a girl who I'd already fought. But the last time, and I won, but that time was her first fight back after a long layoff, and since then she'd been doing really well, winning, won all her fights since then. And so I knew we were going to fight, and so same thing, sitting there, my shins taped up, a few people would come back to talk to me, smash some more Allen snakes. And then that one, I remember getting up to shadow box for it, and I remember and so I got Thai oil on, got up and started shadow boxing, and I was like, I couldn't even put weight on my back leg because my shin and my ankle was so sore, and she was a southpaw, so when you're fighting a southpaw you want to throw your right kick, and I couldn't touch it, and I was like, oh, fuck. And so yeah, and then went out there to do that, and I was like, you didn't come this far, you haven't come this far to just miss out now. And then so I got in the ring, and then I ended up winning that one by stoppage in the second round.
From a cut,
so
right?
Yeah, from a cut. So I think she had a problem with her vision. It was really weird. So we fought the first round, and then came back out to the second, and she came forward, and I put a knee bar up, and then I elbowed her. Same thing, had a bit of fun in there. So I elbowed her, cut her, pointed at her. We had a little laugh. And then I could see, so when I was looking at her, I could see the white part of her iris was red. And then, so she said, like, we're fighting. And then she said, I can't see. And then the ref took her over to the doctor. And the doctor kind of checked the cut and was like, yeah, no, it's okay to go. But I'm like, if someone says that, you should I should just get stopped then. Yeah. Like it's not, yeah. And then so I think then she was kind of fine then. And then same thing, the red started to come up in her eye, and then she kind of stopped again. She goes, I can't see, and the ref waved it off then.
Wow.
Yeah. So and then I was just fucking ecstatic.
Yeah. And
they actually gave us the money in cash, which. Kind of, yeah.
It is actually a bit underwhelming.
It actually kind of felt like terrifying. I was like, I don't want to hold this much money. But and I ended up giving it to my mum because I was like, oh my god.
Oh, so you give it to your mum. Can she defend herself? Like
That's a good point.
you're the fighter, and it's like, here's my defenseless mum. Here's 20 grand.
Well, I thought I was like, no one's gonna know that she had it, but yeah. So I got it and got the photos and stuff with it, and I kind of just passed it to her. I messaged her the day before, and I said, "It's gonna sound real cocky." I messaged her the day before, and I said, "The prize money's in cash, so when I win, I'm gonna give it to you."
Bring it back.
So I got all the photos with the money, and then I passed it to my mum, and she just shoved it in a bra. And no one's, nah, you wouldn't know it's in there. Whereas, like, if I did it, you'd just see this big brick sitting there. So I got nothing to hide if she did. Yeah, so she took it home with her, and I was wondering, I was like, is she gonna get that on the plane? Are they gonna be like, where did this
Money come from? Yeah.
But she did. It was fine. Yeah, and then so I got all the pictures with that, and it was just such an ecstatic feeling. And so that brought me to I've had 5 fights this year, and now I'm gonna have a little bit of a break. I've got like a few things going on with my hormones where I have to. Like, I've been training hard out and just dieting all year, so my body needs a break.
So can you talk about it? Like what sort of happened, or?
So I've got polycystic ovarian disease.
Okay.
So that's like a hormonal disease. It's also something that I don't know the exact statistic on it. I could be wrong here, but I think like the majority of women.
A lot of women have it, right?
A lot of women have it, but I think it's something like crazy, like 80% of women who have it are overweight.
Okay.
Because it's kind of like diabetes, how you can have problems. So I'm just having a few problems with that, and like struggling to keep my period and stuff like that. Which, if you lose a period, it's bad for your bone health. And like I've discussed with Christoph as well. So now we're gonna do get my calories up to try and get it back and stuff like that. So, and then I'm just getting lots of tests and stuff like that to try and figure out what exactly is going on. So, just going through all that at the moment. So then that's same thing I was talking about the post-fight depression before. It's a lot better now. Like, since I had my injury and I established who I am outside of fighting, it's not as bad now for sure. Like, after a fight, I'm kind of like, oh, I've got all these other things in my life. Whereas before, it would be like, my life is meaningless. So it's a lot better now than what it was. But and I did put up a post about how I was like, oh wow, I don't really have it now because of this. But I also, when I put that post up, I had another fight in the line. Yeah. So I still had something to start working towards. So after this one, like I was like, it sounds ridiculous because it's like, you just won a title and $20,000. Get over yourself, like, but
get over yourself. Like, enjoy it. Like, you gotta take those. No,
like, I mean, like, you don't be like, you hardly have post-fight depression where you just.
One.
Yeah. That's what okay. I mean. No, like that kind of thing. Like, oh, get over yourself. But it's kind of like, it's like, oh, now I don't have a goal, and that's something that I've struggled with. If I don't have a goal, I can kind of wig out a little bit. But yeah, now I'm just establishing the same thing of like learning how to live my normal life again, you know, and still. Like, when I injured my back, I was just being a dickhead, you know, I was just going out and partying and being dumb. And now I'm like learning and balancing and training to just get better, not necessarily training because I'm under the pump to get ready for a fight and drop the weight, you know. Now I'm living my life, eating maintenance calories. And it's the same thing how we talk about how you're different versions of yourself in all parts. So I'm excited to meet this version of me. And obviously, like I said before, and then I was convinced. I was like, oh my God, you're so fucking, like, I can't believe you put on this much weight to get ready. And then I weighed myself and I was 5 kilos lighter than I was convinced I was. So yes, I'm at a very interesting part, and I'm very excited to meet the version of me that comes out of this.
Yeah. Well, you put up a very emotional, you know, post-fight interview, right? And you're sort of saying, you know, for people that are, you know, if you've been down in the dumps kind of a thing, you know, just keep going kind of a thing. Like,
yep.
Talk us through what was going through your mind at that point in time.
And I posted a while ago, and I said I didn't even plan to say that. I just came up like fucking word vomit. How
the venting.
I wasn't allowed to say how I felt as a kid. Now I just trauma dump on everyone. Yeah, it just kind of came out. And I think like part of that, like how I said at the start of it, when I had that massive mental breakdown, I was crying. I was like, I can't do this. I don't want to do it. And I think that was probably a part of depression. Of I just wanted to lay there and I didn't want to go to the gym. I just like, I don't know. This might sound stupid. I don't know anyone who's watched Big Mouth. It's a Netflix series, and there's a scene. It's like a cartoon for adults, like South Park kind of thing. Okay. And they've got a scene in there, and they've got like a depression kitty, and she goes up to the girl and she's like, "Just come and lay here with me." And it's like that's what depression feels like. It's you just want to lay there and do nothing. And I don't feel like that helps. I don't feel like laying there and doing nothing. Like, obviously there are parts where you need to rest for sure. But I don't think just laying there and letting your emotions dictate what you do is the best thing for it. And that's why I said, like, get up. And that's how I felt like I was in that state. You know, when I was having that breakdown, I was like, fuck this, I don't want to do this, fuck fighting, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I'm over it. I hate it. And if I had have pulled the pin then on it and just laid down and let that win, that I wouldn't be in the state I am now. You know, and that's why I was saying, get up. Yep. You know, and even after this, like, I had about 2 weeks off from training. I was moving and doing all that stuff, just life getting away, catching up on work, blah blah blah. And then I kind of like felt tired. And then now I'm going to the gym each time. I still go to the gym. It makes me feel so much better. You know, go and do something rather than just laying around. That's kind of how it just came up. I think the get up bit also probably from a sermon that I listened to where they were talking and the person preaching is saying, "Girl, get up." Like, and she says it repeatedly. It's really motivational. I listened to it a few times on Run, and she's just saying, "Girl, get up. Girl, get up. Like, keep going." And I really think if you just lay there, you let it win. And I did that post-fight speech, and I had such traction on it. I can't even tell you how many people reached out to me, how many people that I've just seen who have come up and said something to me and said how they were moved about it. I had a few people, like, even I had male fighters come up to me and tell me they cried when I said it. And I think you can see how real that was in the moment when I said it. Like, I'm fighting to not cry. I can hear it in my voice when I was saying it. And people resonate with that, you know.
Well, it's you know, in a way, it's God speaking through you.
Yeah.
You know, like it is.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why it connects with so many people.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, those are the beautiful moments that come out of something so difficult. Yeah. You know, you do something difficult and you can have these beautiful moments that you can use to not even to use. It's just you just expressing yourself, and other people resonate with that. Yeah. And I think that's
being authentic.
Yeah. Right. There's so much, you know, that's contrived and fake and, you know, bullshit on social media. It's nice to see, you know, the real stuff get some traction. And
I think it's kind of good because people see, I think a lot of the time people see as fighters, they see big tough fighters and they don't actually get it. You know, they don't understand that they're people too. And I think a lot of people from me, you know, I got a horrible resting bitch face, horrible, and I'm covered in tattoos. And I go to the gym, and I'm very quiet when I train. I don't really, and I train really hard and stuff like that. And people really think, "Fuck, this chick's hardcore." Yeah. And like I said before, I'm like deep down a little girl. Yeah. You know. Yeah. And and that's why I wanted to put it out there. You know, people just saw me do this and win that, and saw me train, and saw me just stand there and punch on and like laugh at people when I hit them hard. But like, everyone's human. Like I said before, we're all innately flawed and we've all got problems. And I think the more we speak about it, the better it can feel. Just knowing that other people are in the same boat.
Yeah, we're all on the same journey.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, did you have any plans for your 20,000? Like, did you work out what you want to spend it on? Have you spent any of it? Like, what's the sort of plan?
Oh God, just being an adult and moving. There's my bond. There's this, and I'm like, fuck. It just goes like, like, what do you mean? I have to buy a new fridge?
Oh yeah, those things.
So the joys of being an adult. No, but no real plans. Nothing for it. I like money. Money's not a big motivator for me. If money was a big motivator for me, I'll tell you what, I wouldn't be fighting Thai boxing. But yeah, and if money, like, I am very much someone who, as long as I can pay all my bills, I can go out for breakfast on a Sunday and do that, I'm very content. I don't have this big ambition to make heaps of money or anything like that. It's not something that motivates me at all. So when I was doing this and I was prepping for this fight, it was more so I wanted to do this and I wanted to overcome this and I wanted to do this new challenge. You know, I didn't like. I think I said in the speech, I said, "Don't get me wrong, I want the money," but I would have done it for less. You know, I bet Mark probably hates hearing me say that.
Yeah, of course.
But honestly, and what he did was amazing, and I'm so grateful that women finally got their opportunity, like men do, to fight for that kind of money. Is crazy, but it wasn't overly a motivator for me. Or the belt or anything like that, because I don't hold that stigma to them anymore. I don't care. I wanted to overcome and I wanted to do this new challenge.
Mm.
And now I'm like, fuck, I wanted to fight 3 times in one night. Every time that was mad.
Yeah. Good way to feel. Add wins to the record, right?
Yeah, just rack it up, bang, 2 fights like that. But yeah, and it's the same thing as well. I think it was cool because it was like a new challenge. You know, I've had like 30 fights. You know, I've done that all the time. So it was cool to do this new kind of aspect to it.
Mm.
You know, the new challenge of fighting 3 times in one night was cool.
Yeah, definitely. So I want to touch on this because, you know, that mentality of I don't gas, right? What do you do for like your strength con, that sort of stuff? Do you do anything specific, or is it just all Muay Thai training?
I do strength training, but I think that's more so like a maintenance thing. I know some people go and do, like, people have big, extensive strength and conditioning programs. So you do this for your conditioning, and my strength coach did give me like some stuff, like assault bike stuff and like that conditioning. But I'm very set in my conditioning is my Muay Thai training.
Yep.
You know, I don't need any external things. I run, I show up, and I do Muay Thai, and I train hard. That's it. I don't do any external thing. My strength my strength stuff is generally for strength and to stop myself from getting injured.
Yep.
You know, because obviously my back happened because I wasn't doing enough strength training because there was like imbalances in my body. Yeah. My glutes were like not firing at all.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, and I necessarily don't overly enjoy strength training because I'm very much a here, go next thing, and like the slower pace kind of kills my life.
Well, I also think there's a beauty to that. You know, if you Muay Thai is your is your strength con training, or your, like, you know, you're building efficiency in that movement.
Yep.
And I think that's one of the underrated things that a lot of athletes get carried away with too early in the game, is that, like, if you're just starting out, like, you know, predominantly your training should just be the sport.
Yeah.
Getting good at those movements, getting your balance, getting all of those bits and pieces dialed in, and then you can, like, then start to add, you know, 10 to 20% in terms of strength con. If you're doing it the other way around, where 80% of your training is strength con and 20% of it is your skills, like, you're just going to get outskilled.
Yep. 100%. And I think sometimes people get caught up in trying to reinvent the wheel, you know, and this is a sport that's been around for a fucking long time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's no reinventing the wheels. It's just repetition. You know, how you're going to get better at throwing a right kick? Go to the gym and throw a fucking right kick. So, yeah, but and then I think a big part of that is running. I don't understand how people don't run. I'm massive, and like in Thailand they run all those Ks and stuff like that. I'm massive on running, and if I wouldn't be able to run for a fight camp, I think I'd probably have another 17,000 emotional breakdown.
Yeah. Running's good from the mental perspective, because it's not like, it gives you a time to sort of decompress and like, you know, there's nothing else you can do apart from just run.
Yeah, I'm a fucking nutter too. I run without music and stuff like that because I like my head noise.
Yeah, that's good. I think it's a good way to clean
my
it.
head noise and sermons.
See Katie running down the street preaching.
Yeah. Yeah, or I like talking to people as well. Like, I like running and talking to people. We used to do that a lot of time at my last gym because we'd all run together, like run and talk to people. Like when I used to run and talk to my brother, I really like that. My partner won't have a bar of it. He's like, I'm not talking to you. He's like, we're running, I'm putting music on, I'm not talking to you. I'm like, okay. At least you're running, I'll take it. You're just gonna run with me, I'll take it. But yeah, I find running like therapeutic. It's like, I feel like I'm someone who has a million thoughts per second, and when I run, I feel like I can like streamline what I think, and I feel like I always have these like epiphanies all the time when I'm running. And I've had a few times I've run and then I've had this massive social media rant about something that I feel, and again, it gets heaps of traction. I feel like every time I have a emotional breakdown on the internet, gets a lot of
people love drama.
What the fuck is she
goes again?
Yeah. What's she got on now? They're like, oh, it's been 2 months. About time for Katie to have a breakdown. Katie has a breakdown. But yeah, and I get so many people like be like, oh my god, yes, I get this. And it happens all the time. The emotional breakdowns. But I mean, like the epiphanies happen all the time after I run, and I feel like I can be clear again. Or even sometimes I'll be at home and I'll start. I'll be like a bit weird or a bit quiet, and my partner's like, go for a run. Go for a run. And then I come back and I'm normal again. Yeah. Like I find it very therapeutic, and I didn't enjoy it for years. For years I didn't enjoy running. I was like, oh fuck, I've got a fight booked, I better run. And now I have to.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'll put my head through the wall.
Yeah, that's usually, like, a lot of people, there's many schools of thought on running, right? Like there's guys that hate running, and there are people that love running.
Yep.
So, whatever works for you. Out of curiosity, so as you've gone throughout this whole time, you mentioned your first job was in the news agency. Did you work other odd jobs between that? And I know you got a government job now, but like, to sort of before you got to where you are today?
No, so I kind of did that, and then I worked for the council for a little bit, again, government, and then I started just PTing. I was just doing PTs, and that I'm thinking about going back and doing a bit of it, but it kind of it burnt me out a little bit because I'm already there all the time, and I'm very much a hard ass, and I'm not like when it comes to training, and I struggle with associating that people just want to train for fun.
Yeah.
So that was difficult for me.
What do you mean you're here for a good time? Give me 10 hard round.
Don't complain. Shut the fuck up. So yeah, that was a bit difficult. And then I worked for years. I worked in a tattoo studio, just doing reception at a tattoo studio. And thus this happened.
Oh, okay. So that's
much to my father's disgust.
So okay, there's got to be some good stories about working in a tattoo studio.
Oh god, there's some shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, it's like a lot of it was it's and tattoo artists are unique human beings in general. A lot of it felt like I was in school, like when people doing spitballs at me or putting tape on the wall. You're walking into tape, yeah. It was a big boys club, and it was very much like we were in high school again. Like people duct taping you to the chair, like lots of dumb stuff within the artists and stuff like that. And then you'd get the drunk people coming in and they want something done, or just some of the requests you get, or you get the same. Like I remember guys sometimes, I'm just describing this person, I'm not being racist. This Indian man came in and showed me a screenshot of a tattoo that he wanted, and I could see in the top in the search bar it had "sexy tattoo for man." And I remember thinking,
there you go.
What the hell is that? And he had the image on there, and I thought that was really funny.
What was the image of?
I can't remember, something stupid. I think it might have been like white boy tribal or something like that. Something stupid. And then I had things. I remember once this dude wanted to get loyalty tattooed on him, very, very Penrith. And so we used to like write back then. It changed. It's all computers now. But back then, you used to like write down what people wanted and like draw on the body where it was. And on the like sample sheet, someone had like they wanted to get like loyalty across their chest. And I wrote in the comment bit, "Tell me you cheat without telling me you cheat." And the guy actually saw that on the piece of paper, and he saw it. I was like, "Oh fuck."
Did he say anything?
No, it was just, but it got real awkward.
So, in terms of the tattoos, obviously I can see you got the second, but what else have you got, like picture-wise?
This is all like kind of like Japanese stuff, and then I got a girl doing a white crew on the inside of my leg, which I kind of just chucked in there. I got my mate's name chucked in this sleeve because he said he'd give me $20 if I tattooed his name.
$20? You sold yourself short, Katie.
Well, it'll be blacked out eventually. It's still not finished. But yeah, it felt really funny at the time. But yeah, so I got all that. The geisha on my leg's actually my stepsister's face. Because I was like, if I'm going to get a girl tattooed on my leg, she's got to be pretty, and my stepsister's really pretty. So I got her face. My nephew kind of comes up to my leg and goes, "Mom."
Oh, really?
Yeah, so
wow,
that's kind of cool. So I got that, and then I got all the Sakyan. I got my other friend's name in there, also a drunk adventure. And then nothing necessarily overly has too much meaning, but I've actually got on my wrist, I've got "Speak Up."
Okay.
That same kind of thing. Wasn't allowed to talk about how I feel, and now I'm very passionate about it. If something's not right, I'm going to say it. Yeah, so that's probably my only one that's kind of got a bit of meaning to it. And I got it on my wrist so I can see it. And I've had situations before where something's been going on and I can feel that burning in my chest, and it's kind of there so I can see it. And then I go bang and say it.
Yeah.
And I even do this thing now where if I don't, same thing I was talking about how when I get angry, I still count down from 10.
Yep.
If I have something to say and I'm scared to say it, I go 1, 2, 3. And I just say it.
Yep.
So.
That's good.
Yeah.
They're good little cues to sort of help you overcome some of these things that hold you back, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So, in terms of like sponsors, things like that, do you have any of those that you need to thank or shout out?
So I had, I was very upset. So I had Evolution Medical Clinic in Penrith. I can't speak highly enough of. They were like my day one sponsor, and they were really great. And I just want to, if you're in Penrith and you're there and you're an athlete, go see them. They are the best. I used to go and see them twice a week, and they would treat me. And obviously now I'm too far.
Yeah.
It's very sad, but I was seeing them. So if you're in Penrith, definitely go see them.
Okay.
Sure.
So on the lookout for some sponsors.
Yes, I'm on the lookout for some sponsors. So obviously I had the injury and stuff, and then I kind of, I had a few sponsors, and then things kind of fall through and stuff like that. But if you're willing,
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Is there anything that we didn't talk about? We should cover.
Oh, we'll probably remember it at like 12 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Fuck,
yeah.
I should have said that. No, and then shout out to Sitratong, my gym. The guys absolutely welcomed me with open arms. I love that gym. I love how I was greeted and I was treated, and I was just really grateful for the team there and A-Room.
Yep. And if people want to find you on socials, how do they find you?
Katie Rose 144. That's my Instagram.
What's the one? Does 144 mean anything?
14 is my lucky number.
Okay. So
And
then
then I don't know. I think Katie Rose 14 was taken.
There you go. All right. Thanks, everyone.
No worries. Thank you.